Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Megan Murphy. This is Mary Lou Singleton.
Hi, everybody.
Um, we are very glad to be back. Well, I am anyway. Are you glad to be back or not glad to be back, Mary
I'm
Lou?
glad to be back. I went to a concert in Santa Fe last week with Phil, and it was super fun. So
Oh,
that was good.
fun.
It was a weird band that Phil likes, the Disco Biscuits, which are like this trancy jam band. But it was actually great. I thought I was prepared to tolerate it, but I actually had a really good time.
You know what's funny is that I would not have otherwise have heard of this band before, but I have heard of this band before because I've met two people who are like really big fans of this band. Like they go see them wherever they are. These are people that live here in Mexico, and so they've told me, and I was like, the what? So they've told me about. I've never actually listened to them before, but there's two big fans that I've met here,
That's so
so
funny.
you're not alone.
Yeah, Phil is a super fan of the Disco Biscuits, and I guess I'm a fan now. It was a really fun concert. It was a lot of dancing and just like very trancy music where it just was hard not to get caught up in it, which was great.
Cool. Well, that's a
Yeah.
good excuse.
Thanks.
Um, I probably could have found somebody to co-host, but I was like, I have like a terrible excuse. This is a good excuse to go to my boxing class because my boxing class is usually too late and I can't make it back in time for the stream. And I couldn't really find anybody in any case, but I also just settled it. I was like, okay, well, I gotta go to my boxing class and we'll reconvene next week. No one is as good a co-host as Mary Lou in any case, so it would have been an abject failure.
Well, I'm not sure, but I'm happy to be back. I missed it. I missed it. I hope people missed us.
Yes, they did. People
Good.
commented that they did anyway. So we'll
Mhm.
just trust them that they were telling the truth. I missed it. I mean, it's unbelievable how much is happening from week to week. So it always
No.
feels like, oh Lord, there's a lot that we could be talking about, but it never ends. Part of the psyop, I guess.
It's rapid fire. This is just shocking to me. I didn't even check before we logged on if I know Tulsi Gabbard was approved today to be the what is it? Then it's not the NSA director. I should even know the director of national intelligence. And that's exciting, but I don't know if RFK got approved today. I know he made it through one more committee the last I had checked. So
I
it's on
didn't.
its way.
That's a good question. I didn't
Mm,
see anything about RFK today. Yeah, Tulsi was sworn in as Director of National Intelligence, which is so
huge.
exciting.
I love Tulsi
And I bet
Gabbard.
there's a lot of deep state people who are scared right now.
I
I hope they
know.
are anyway.
Like Vance Gabbard, 28 is what I'm thinking. I think that would be a great ticket.
I know. I know.
It,
That would be thrilling.
mm,
Um, I Mary Lou already knows this, but for those in the audience, I had the flu, so I was asleep for 48 hours.
mm.
I haven't had the flu in forever. Like I can't even. I feel like I've had the flu maybe twice in my life or something like that. Maybe more. I wasn't paying attention or something like that. But I was asleep from Sunday through till I don't know, pretty like sometime on Tuesday. So I'm still kind of congested and a bit foggy and a little bit
Mm.
coffee in case I sound weird to people. And also, like, four people responded to the last Substack article that I wrote to tell me that I was like a fucking retard because I had typos in my subhead. And first of
Ah,
all, I don't
yeah.
put typos in my work because I'm a retard. It's because I'm very bad at, as everybody is, copy editing my own work. Like you read things over and you just don't see things that you see in other people's work. And that's why you get other people to copy edit things for you because you somehow go blind to mistakes in your own work. And when you go back and you start editing things over and over and over, sometimes you edit weird things in and I
Hmm.
don't know. It's sort of more of a blindness than it is a stupidity thing. But I understand that it's annoying to read those kinds of things. So I'm sorry, but I was in more of a brain fog than usual yesterday. I was just like, okay, I need to do something. I need to
Mm.
write. So I forced myself to do it, but it was a bit of a slog for my flu brain. Anyway, so sorry about the
Um,
subhead, everyone. Some people were nice about it. Some people are friendly and they're like, "Hey, Megan, FYI," and then some people respond by email and they're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I don't know, man. You try doing this. Maybe you'd be better
totally.
at it. I'm not a robot. Like I probably have whatever people think ADHD is, i.e. I don't have a robot brain.
Mhm.
I'm not like autistic.
Right,
Um,
right.
but yeah, sorry about that. Um, and yeah, one thing that I started doing recently that you've probably done a million times, but I'm not like a trad wife, so
My trad wife.
it's either like being like a witch or like a trad wife. I
Mhm.
finally started making bone broth at home
Oh, cool.
because it's really good for you,
Mhm.
obviously. And I also, for a long time, I buy like collagen supplements because it's good for your bones and joints and skin and all of that
Mhm.
stuff, but they're quite expensive. And I ran out of my collagen here. It's sort of hard to get stuff like that sometimes in Mexico because it's just sometimes hard to find quality things, and sometimes it's weirdly overpriced on Amazon and things like that. And I was like, oh, this is so stupid. Like, the best way to get collagen is from bone marrow, I would think,
Mhm.
right? Like that's where you get collagen from is bones, right?
Bones, the joints of the bones, like the skin of the animal. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was like, this is so silly. Like, I mean, anything that you're getting in a supplement isn't going to be as good as the real thing.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, oh, I can just do this. And I went up to my butcher, and I'd been buying chicken feet for the dogs to chew on sometimes. And I was like, oh, I'll just buy a bunch of chicken feet. They're so cheap. And they always have tons of chicken feet at the butcher.
Mhm.
Um, and I made bone broth, and I put it in water with garlic and onion and a bunch of herbs and simmered it for
Nice.
many, many, many hours. And it was so delicious. It was so good, and I'm totally obsessed with it. And I'm wondering why I never did this before, but at least now I am.
Oh, chicken foot soup is so good.
It's
And
so
isn't it,
good.
it's like velvety. And yeah, it's so soothing, especially if you've got sore throat or your gut is inflamed. Chicken foot soup is amazing.
Yeah, like what a great cure for a flu
Hmm.
or a
Right.
cold. And just in general, it's just such a delicious, comforting thing. And it's so easy to make, and it's so cheap, and it's so good for you. And yeah, chicken feet, it's yeah, delicious.
Hmm.
Delicious.
Yeah. Did you feel really witchy too when you had that pot of chicken
Yeah,
feet going? Yeah,
a
totally.
boiling feet. And I
Hmm.
couldn't think of the word foot when I was at the butcher, so it's like he knows that I don't speak Spanish very well, and he doesn't speak English, and we communicate a lot, so you know we manage, and he's not
Yeah.
super judgmental of me, which is very kind of him. But it's always a little bit awkward when I'm trying to order things and I'm like, like, so I was like, pollo, like, I was like, like chicken hands, mas,
Yeah. How much is a big bag of chicken feet down there?
like 30 pesos.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
incredible.
I know. It's
Wow.
nothing because it's, in general, my butcher is very affordable, and I love it so much because I eat meat every day, and I think it's insane how much meat costs in BC.
Mm,
It's totally unaffordable, and I don't know how people are supposed to get enough protein in
mm,
Canada. Um, but I think, chicken feet, it's not like a delicacy food.
mm,
So it probably is almost considered sort of closer to a scrap. But yeah, it's not, there's not a ton of meat on the bones either. So I guess it
mm.
sort of makes sense. But yeah, I got a ton of them for 30 pesos. And so,
That's incredible. How
yeah.
many pesos to the dollar right now?
Oh,
You
I
know?
don't know. But I mean, the US dollar is amazing right now.
Mm,
I, I'm not trying to brag, but I'm super glad that I'm making USD
mm.
over Canadian dollars right now for
You
sure. I mean, I'm still poor, guys. Don't worry. I'm not. I'm not as big as a grifter as you'd like me to be.
Yeah,
But
USA.
USA. Um, I I don't know how much you've been following. I mean, probably a little bit because everybody probably has what's been happening in Canadian politics, but I've been very frustrated and mostly because I just think Canadians are really not getting it. And I am like, did all the boosters brain fry them?
Mm,
Or is it just that Canadians have been propagandized for so long that they're not really able to pick up what's really going on? Not all Canadians, I should say. I mean, obviously, we have a huge contingent of Canadians who figured out what was going on during COVID and fought back and won. But there's still a huge, huge, huge segment of the population that has Trump derangement syndrome, that thinks that conservatives are scary, like sort of has a vision of conservatives and whatever they think the right is that existed in the 70s or maybe even the 90s. It's like the right
mm,
wing are the, greedy corporate power, misogynist, racist, et cetera, et cetera. And think that America is bad. That's sort of a long-standing Canadian mentality, which I find ironic because Canadians have this reputation of being really nice and polite, but there's always been this smugness about not being American and this open, like it's acceptable and encouraged to insult Americans in America and Canada.
mm.
I don't know if Americans realize that until recently.
Yeah, I
Now
think
they
some
know.
Americans do. Yeah. So are they, so the little bit that I've been paying attention to, it looks like, I mean, they with a capital T, are manufacturing some zeitgeist around a successor to Trudeau. Like they're bringing forth a,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like it's sort of a Kamala type thing, which is
Mm,
interesting. But I mean, so what happened was I can't remember how much I explained on the last stream. I think I did explain, so I won't go into too much detail, but Trudeau claimed he was resigning, but what he really said was that he planned to resign. So he hasn't resigned. He's still prime minister. He said he would resign when the Liberal Party had chosen a new leader, but he prorogued Parliament in the meantime. So he
mhm,
froze Parliament. And he did this, with the sort of convenient timing of, he knew that these tariff threats from Trump were coming. So he prorogued Parliament and sort of, froze the government. And in the meantime, it appears that the Liberal Party has selected, they haven't officially, but they are behaving as though there's a new party leader in Mark Carney. There's been no democratic process around that. Mark Carney is, Trudeau's pick. They've known each other for a long time. He sort of rejected Chrystia Freeland in favor of Mark Carney. And Mark Carney's been sort of out in the world and in the media speaking as though he's a government official, which he's not. He hasn't been
mhm,
elected to anything. And speaking as though he's the leader, as though he's the PM.
mhm,
And, Parliament isn't going to be restored probably until the end of March. And in the meantime, they've been riling up Canadians with all this fear mongering around Trump's attack on Canada and turning Canadians against Americans. People have been
mm,
blaming Trump for that, but I blame Trudeau and the Liberal Party for doing that. Because they're taking it as an opportunity to play patriotic and to play Team
mm,
Canada. Everybody hated Trudeau. The
mm,
Liberal Party was dead like in December.
mhm,
Like it was done for. And Poilievre was set to win the election, no contest. Um, and all of a sudden, they've created a crisis, right?
mm.
They've
Yeah,
created a
right, right.
crisis for people to rally around. Um, the Liberal Party are now Team Canada, and we need to protect Canadian sovereignty and fight back against mean America and mean Trump. So not
Wow.
only have they, like, they're making things worse in terms of their relationships with their relationship with America, which is really stupid if they don't want a trade war. But I think that they do want a trade war because it serves. What does Trudeau give a shit about our economy? He destroyed our economy. He doesn't care if it gets worse as long as he and Mark Carney and his Liberal Party can play hero.
Right. It's so interesting that they're fighting nationalism with nationalism, right? Just the like, rallying around the Canadian identity in Canada. I really don't think they're playing fair. It just reminds me of the Kamala thing here of, our guy can't win. We'll just manufacture a new guy and shine that person up and can like hypnotize the masses to believe they always like that person.
Yeah, it's sort of like, wait, where did this guy come from? Like, why is he doing interviews on American news shows as though he's representing Canada? Like, this guy came from the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, and Goldman Sachs. And his politics are the same as Trudeau. He's a globalist. And I don't know if this is working on Canadians as well as it looks like it's working, because you don't really know like who on Twitter is sort of like a paid bot essentially. And the Canadian media is mostly funded, at least in part, by the Liberal government, with the exception of like the National Post and Rebel News. So all of those outlets have always been messenger services for the Liberal Party. So now they're saying that, all of a sudden, in a matter of a month, the Liberal Party was almost dead, but now they're sort of equal in the race to Poilievre. Now, they're sort of like almost 50-50, right? Like they're like a real competitor, because Mark Carney was not like a super compelling guy. He wasn't like super well known to regular Canadians, I don't think, prior to all this. So it doesn't really make sense. So I don't know if those polls are real. I don't know if this reporting is accurate or reflective of how Canadians feel at all. If it is true, it's super disappointing. It does seem like a lot of Canadians have completely forgotten what happened during COVID, and they're just really open to emotional manipulation again.
Well, so many were fine with what happened during COVID.
That's true.
Right? I remember watching radical activists from Canada that I had known through Deep Green Resistance, through radical feminism, people who had espoused that they want to destroy industrial civilization, calling the truckers the Freedom Convoy, DUMB, at the end of the word free, and just really vilifying anyone who wasn't getting in line and getting the shot and agreeing to have all their personal freedom taken away. Freedom is stupid. And these were the radicals. I mean, it seems like a lot of Canadians just rolled with it and were perfectly fine with it, which is true of a lot of Americans too, as well. But
yeah, that's true. I think you're right, because I think that a lot of the Canadians who are falling for this fake nationalism or fake patriotism thing and going like rah, 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 Team Canada, along with Mark Carney and apparently his Liberals, I think those are all the people who still think that we're dumb conspiracy theorists and anti-vaxxers and really haven't caught up with the reality of what happened during the past 5 years. I mean, like, I posted something on Twitter and then to Instagram, and my Instagram posts automatically go to Facebook. So I don't actually use Facebook that much, but my Instagram posts, I'll go there. So often there'll be a bunch of comments and I haven't even seen them because I forgot to look over there, but I did look over there today. And the post, and it's so funny, the difference in comments that I get on Instagram versus X versus Facebook, because the Facebook comments are almost always from, I don't know, like the older rad femme types who are still, and you know, those kinds of, and Canadians who are still sort of on there and like really stuck in their algorithm. So are like, what are you talking about, Meghan? What is wrong with you? You're so stupid and crazy. They don't ever make arguments, right? They just are like, what happened to you? I don't even know who you are anymore. And I'm like, I guess not. Where have you been over the past 5 years? Like,
right.
but they just can't seem to adjust their brains. But so what I had posted was, I said, Canada becoming the 51st state would be an inarguably far better outcome for Canadians than another Liberal term, which I think a lot of people misinterpreted as me saying that Canada should become the 51st state. I don't think it would be bad for Canada at all to become the 51st state. I think it would be good for Canada, but that wasn't really my point. My point was that if you guys elect the Liberal Party again, that's it. You're screwed. And yeah, of course you would be better off as the 51st state. You know, like you might have a chance if you elect Poilievre. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, he was seeming pretty good. I haven't heard much from him lately, which is odd considering all that's going on. You know, maybe he wouldn't save Canada, but I had some hope for Canada's, you know, Canada sort of regaining, or Canadians regaining their rights and freedoms and free speech and ending the gender ideology stuff. And dealing with the immigration problem and the like brutal economy and inflation right now. But I don't know for sure. But you know, the rage that people, you know, the way that people react to that comment is so emotional and so irrational. You know, we have to, what about Canada's sovereignty? I can't, traitor. I got called a traitor so many times, and I'm like, a traitor to what? Communism?
Right.
Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, do you want to be a communist country and have no rights and freedoms? Or do you want rights and freedoms?
Led by a banker. They're rallying around a banker. Like, that's generally, I thought the left didn't like bankers. This is so bizarre to me. The flip that has happened in the embrace of totalitarian groupthink and the love of big pharma and the love of big business and the love of bankers going on the so-called left.
Right, and a globalist. You know, they're doing they think they're rallying around patriotism.
Yes, and it's globalism
coming from a globalist and a globalist party. You know, Trudeau's a globalist, Carney's a globalist. You know, and they think that patriotism is disgusting when it comes from America. Right. It's just I don't think they think at all. Like, it's so it almost makes me sick. Like, it gives me anxiety to think about what's wrong with these people's brains that they can't seem to adjust to reality. They're just reacting, and they're not thinking. And I'm like, you know what? Like, if you want to do this to yourselves, then I guess this is what you deserve. I'm trying to help. Like, I'm not against you. Like, if you hate Canada so much, then leave. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I did leave because I didn't want to live in Canada, and I was very scared and concerned about what was going on there. So I left, but thanks. But why would I be saying this if I wanted the end of Canada? Like, I'm trying to help you save yourselves, and you don't want it, and you don't want to hear it. So I don't know what to tell you.
I think the thing that distresses me most about Canada, and this is just my observation as someone who doesn't live there, but it looks to me like it's a complete propaganda state, similar to other totalitarian regimes. And can you explain the media laws that prevent Canadians from accessing certain media online?
Well, what happened? I mean, so first of all, it is a propaganda state because most of the media is funded and therefore run by the government. And we also have a really small media landscape, so there's just not a lot of diversity in terms of the media. You know, like that, what I just said is also true in the States to a certain degree, but you guys also had, you know, there's a lot of right-wing media. There's just way more media. You know, we didn't really have you know, there was a couple right-wing media outlets, and then the rest is I don't know, whatever you want to call it, progressive, I guess. And then, they decided to limit Canadians' access to Canadian news online for some reason, but then they also changed the CRTC regulations to include social media, so YouTube and Facebook and things like that, which meant that the CRTC, which is a government entity, gets to control what Canadians see in their feeds. So they took me out. I was right out of the algorithm during COVID, and I seem to have made my way actually back in a little bit on Instagram, because I think Meta has actually been changing some of their algorithmic limitations based on their new pro-speech views, which I don't.
Winds are blowing in a different direction. So it's similar to here. They're just more upfront about it. Like here, the government's, it's not a violation of the First Amendment for the government to request censorship.
Well, they pretend that they're protecting Canadians from hate speech.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
and they could do it more overtly there.
Yeah, I think they're just more upfront about it, and Canadians buy it. I mean, one of the main differences between Canada and America is the Americans have a real fight in them, and a real, commitment to maintaining free speech and their individual rights. So, their property rights and their gun rights. And Canadians don't have that. Canadians are more trusting of their government and of institutions. And a lot of people in Canada think that free speech is dangerous, actually. And they definitely think that guns are dangerous. So they support gun laws, and then they claim that, Trump is attacking them. They're under attack by America and they're going to fight back. And I'm like, how are you going to fight back? Literally with what army? And you guys hate guns. So America has way, like, Americans are far more armed than you are. Also, the reason that you're protected is because America protects you. America has been paying for Canada's NATO membership.
Really?
Like billions of dollars of it, probably not the entire membership fee, but the membership fee is like billions of dollars. Yeah. Trump was like, he said this reason. He's like, we've been floating Canada for all these years. Why? Why should we do that? Like, maybe you should just be a state. Doesn't that make more sense if we're paying your way?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, what do you do? What are you talking about? You're going to fight back against America? Are you crazy? Shut up. Play nice or fuck off. Like, what are you doing? Like, and then you're blaming Trump for creating this like antagonistic relationship. Trudeau started the antagonistic relationship by insulting Trump a bunch, and now they're making it worse. Now they are having Canadians booing the American national anthem at sports games. They're doing it on purpose. They're again, he created the mass division in Canada more than I'd ever seen in my lifetime for his own political purposes. And now they're doing it again and nobody sees it.
I wonder what'll happen. It's wild watching them manufacture a candidate and hypnotize everyone into believing that that's who they chose. That's who we want. But it's not new. I mean, this is just politics. So the pendulum will swing again in the United States, but Trump has only been in the role of the presidency for 3 weeks, less than a month. And this 4 years is a long time. I don't think that it's wise for Canada to be antagonizing the United States. I mean, it's funny what's rising up in me as an American when you're talking about this. I'm like, oh, you don't want to fuck with the United States. Like, we're the world's biggest arsenal. Like, we start wars all the time. Like, don't mess with us. We could obliterate Canada. We could take over Canada, and in a weekend, it would take a weekend to do it, because if the U.S. decided to put its military, I'm not advocating
but they wouldn't even need to use its military. They wouldn't need to use a gun to take Canada. They could just do it. Right. And it would be super fast. And I don't think it'd be a good idea. I think it would create a lot of resentment. And,
yeah, I don't see what the point of it would be, though, like somebody could argue it to me and I could see, but I do know there are Canadians that want to be annexed by America. The Free Press did an article on that just a few weeks ago. Of, up to 10% of Canadians are in favor of it. It's certainly not the majority.
I mean, I think it would be good for Canada because, I mean, first of all, I think a lot of Canadians would like to have US citizenship and be making US dollars. But also, if you're talking about sovereignty, I think that you would literally have more sovereignty as a state. The provinces don't have sovereignty in the ways that states do in America. What the provinces do, there's some, you get to make some choices within the provinces, but it's still mostly dictated by the federal government, certainly more so than it is in the US. Like laws differ quite drastically among the states in America, right?
Oh, yeah, they do. I mean, we have federal rights that can't be bridged by the states, and the feds control a lot of money and can bully the states into doing things based on federal funding, though that's shifting. I mean, really, we're looking at a major like shakeup of our governmental finances, which is kind of exciting to me and kind of terrifying to me. It'll be a big change. But yes, the states can do a lot of things that they want to do on their own. I'm sure that as a US state, there's more room for sovereignty than being a Canadian province in terms of being able to write your own laws.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that it would be good for America because, like you say, you'd end up with a lot of people who don't want to be there, and I don't think that's good. Like if half of Canada wants to be a state, great, but the other half is angry and doesn't want to be there. That sucks. And then you have a huge voter block of essentially progressive voters who are going to vote Democrat and ruin America then.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
well, and I think the healthcare situation would be a big point of contention, even though I'm on a lot of critically minded healthcare provider Twitter threads, and from what I hear, the Canadian healthcare system is collapsing. Like people are not getting good care there. People are being underserved. They're shutting down emergency rooms. People are waiting months and months to start cancer treatment. Americans have been brainwashed by the left to believe that Canada has this, just the paragon of perfection, of perfect healthcare system. And it sounds like it's just collapsing, that it's not actually working well for most people.
No, I mean, it's not working well for most people. And the wait times in ERs are extreme. People die in the wait rooms. People die on wait lists for surgeries. You can't get in to see a doctor, et cetera, et cetera. And Canadians are brainwashed by this too, though. I still get tons of comments from people and did when I posted this comment that I referenced earlier around Canada becoming the 51st state, from Canadians also saying, I don't want to lose my health care, or, what were the other things that they brought up? I'm trying to remember, like, I don't know. She was talking about universal daycare, but then she said she was paying $300 a month for daycare. And then, when you're also paying like 40% of your income to taxes, I'm like, is this a great deal?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Canadians will still reference their healthcare and like, no, I don't want to go to the US and have no healthcare where people are dying in the streets and starving to death and there's no education. And I'm like, is that really how it works? Like, I mean, first of all, you still have to pay into the healthcare system in Canada. Like if you're very poor, if you make a very, very low income, then you don't have to pay into it. But once you make like a normal income, and certainly once you get into the higher brackets, you still have to pay like a monthly amount into the healthcare system on top of the taxes that you pay, on top of the like 40% of your taxes that you're paying. You're still paying, I don't know. I don't even know what it is now. Like when I was younger and paying into this, the last time I had a normal income in Canada, which was a long time ago, like
Yeah.
15 years ago, maybe, I think I was paying like $100 a month into the healthcare system. Like, it's not free. It's not free. Like, if you're in America, you pay into like either your workplace pays into a plan for you, or I guess you have to pay into it on your own. Is that right? Or you pay private, I guess.
We have the Medicare, the Medicaid system that does vary from state to state. There's some federal funding for it, and then what it covers and who is eligible for it varies a lot from state to state. Where I live in New Mexico, it's fairly easy for low-income people to get on Medicaid. What it's not easy to do is access care, because we have, in New Mexico where I live, we have lost 30% of our physicians since 2020 because of the draconian COVID laws, because this state's is blue. It's run by the Democrats. And I don't know what their end game is. They keep passing legislation, making it a terrible place to practice medicine, increasing our malpractice caps. Like now, who's moving to New Mexico are trial lawyers, because we can be sued for much higher numbers now than we could 3 years ago. We're circling the drain. Like, people, you can have insurance, but you can't see a doctor for 18 months. Oregon has really good Medicaid eligibility. I don't know what their provider situation is like. Washington, California. Then a lot of the southern states, it's almost impossible to get on Medicaid, and it doesn't cover much, and it's poorly funded, and doctors don't want to take it because they make a third of what they make from private insurance. So Canada could decide to have universal Medicaid if they wanted to fund it through, if Canada were a state, they would have lots of oil and gas revenue that they could use to fund their Medicaid program and keep their system. What I'm observing is I'm hearing a lot about the system not being solvent in the Canadian healthcare system. And it looks like they're really encouraging people to kill themselves through the healthcare system. And that's one way to cut costs. It looks like that's actually being used as a cost-cutting measure in Canada. Because of the 10th Amendment and states' rights, Canada could keep physician-assisted suicide. This is crazy. Like, I don't necessarily want Canada to be a state, but this is how it could work. They could keep their healthcare. They could, so many people love the idea that they can be killed by the state. Like, that's some wonderful freedom, right? Oh, in my state,
freedom to choose
being killed by the authorities.
So they get out of having to pay for my health care.
Right, exactly.
They're not doing, which is why you want to die, because nobody's taking care of you.
Yeah, the propaganda around that is off the chain right now. I forget what it's called. There's a new movie out with Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton, who are, those are bigwigs, and it's all a glorification of medically assisted suicide. So many of my leftist friends are so excited when their friends are committing suicide. They're really, really excited. Like, how beautiful, how cool. Isn't that cool? This person's going to do medical. Yeah, it's very brave. It's so, it's celebrated right now. The having the state kill you, having agents of the state help you kill yourself.
I know. I've seen that from people too, and I just think it's really sad. And, I support bodily autonomy and bodily sovereignty, but I just think in the reality of how it goes down and the way that it's going down in Canada, it just seems really sick to me, because like you, I think it reads as this is a cheap way out for the state. So the government doesn't have to pay for all of your healthcare costs, because the people who are choosing this are people with severe disabilities and with mental health issues, or, people who are depressed, and, primarily people who are very poor.
Yes.
And so they can't access what they need. So we have this great healthcare system, but why are the very, very poor still not able to get the help and support that they need in terms of their struggles with health and disability and mental health? The stories that you read, which, there was good reporting on this in the free press, and in other places as well. are these people who can barely afford their rent and groceries based on their welfare checks or their disability
Mm-hmm.
checks or whatever, and then they're getting no support beyond that, and so they're totally isolated on top of everything. You can't get out of the house. I mean, even like Canadians who are making an okay income can't afford to get out of the house. This is all of my friends that I talk to back in Vancouver and even in the suburbs. It's not even just the cities anymore. It's like
Mm-hmm.
Kelowna. It's like, oh, like I can't afford to go out. I'm like, what do you guys do? Like, where do you guys go? What's the bar? If I'm back in town for a night, because I don't really want to stay there for longer than that. Like, where do you guys hang out? Oh, we don't really go out. Like, nobody can afford to go out. We don't go out to bars.
Oh, they should all just kill themselves. That's pretty depressing.
Yeah.
That's so
So it's
sad.
just all this stuff compounded on top of itself, and it's all really the government's fault.
People are fools if they believe the government loves them and wants to help them. And I cannot believe anyone is excited about the government helping you kill yourself. This is so crazy. I'm all about bodily autonomy. Like, if you want to kill yourself, shoot yourself in the head or inject a vial of insulin into you. It's not that hard to kill yourself.
No, it's not hard to kill yourself. Like, that's the other thing. I was like, I don't really understand why you need the doctor to do that. Like, it's not that hard to take drugs that will kill you. I'm not suggesting anyone do it, but I mean,
but it's an abdication of personal responsibility. It's this whole like nanny state safetyism taken to the end of life, that I don't want to experience the like birth. It's like, I don't want to experience the uncertainty of death. I want to be in control of it, except I don't actually want to be in control of it. I want authority figures to help me out and help me like have a controlled death. And I just don't like it. I think it's cowardly. I think that it's bad. I also think it's a terrible precedent for the state to start deciding whose life isn't of value anymore, who qualifies as being eligible to be killed by the state.
And then somebody's getting paid to kill you too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, somebody's getting paid to kill you.
Like doctors still in Canada get paid by the appointment. They just get paid from the government. Like, they have to put in your healthcare number, and then they put in what they've treated you for, and then they get paid for whatever that amount is, right?
Mm-hmm. Is that how it works? I didn't know if the Canadian doctors were on salary.
I wonder if they're on a salary too. But I used to work for a physiotherapy clinic when I was younger as a receptionist, and you would plug in, part of it would be paid by the government, and then the patient would have to pay the rest, like it wasn't fully covered, or part of it would be paid by their extended healthcare, whatever. But if they had coverage from the government, you would punch in whatever that is, and then they would get a certain amount from the government, and then they get a certain amount from the patient, and then maybe they get a certain amount from extended care.
Similar to here. I didn't realize it was that. For some reason, I thought the doctors were just salaried.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why doctors, like, if you go see your doctor, I'm probably like talking part out my ass. Screwed up that phrase. And somebody's going to correct me. But like, when you go to the doctor in Canada now, this has been going on for, I don't know, I would probably say 6 or 7 years. It didn't used to be like this when I went to the doctor. I could just go to the doctor and talk to them about whatever's going on and be like, I have a sore throat, but also like, I'm worried about this mole. Can you look at it? And I have, like a toenail fungus or whatever.
Yeah.
But now if you go, they're like, they only let you talk about one thing. They're only allowed to do one thing at a time. So they plug in like, because I have a 15-minute slot with you, plug in Meghan, healthcare number, I get a chunk of money for this. I saw her for this. Next person. If they talk about two things, they're not getting paid for two things. They're only getting paid for this particular kind of appointment. Probably for different kinds of appointments, you get a certain different amount. And now I'm starting to make notes. That's going to stop talking.
Yeah, specialists probably get paid more. So it sounds really similar here to insurance here.
But you're getting paid for the appointment by the government, right? So if you're getting paid to do a MAID appointment, you're getting paid for that. Like, you are.
Oh, completely. And there are people making
Like they're
tons of
trying.
money.
That's why they're trying. The doctors are trying to get as many patients in as in a day, right? That's why they're like, oh, I can only see you for 5 minutes or whatever for one thing, because they need to get more and more and more people in so that they can, you know, make their income or whatever.
It's crazy. So someone in the comments had said, it could be extremely hard to kill yourself if you're immobile or really, really sick. And that is not really true. You can stop eating and drinking. And if you're already really, really sick, it probably will take like 3 days to, like, I'm not advocating suicide. I'm just so tired of people just abdicating all responsibility for themselves and wanting the government to do everything for them and wanting to be off the hook for their own decision. Like, it's not that hard to kill yourself. I really think it's dangerous.
It is strange. But I mean, also, you know, they've been selling it, right? Like there have been these ads that make it look kind of romantic and nice.
When remember that article, it came out in, I can't remember what Canadian publication, but it said that MAID has been a boon to people who need organ transplants. So they're like harvesting your body parts.
That's sick.
And that means they're going to be encouraging more young, physically healthy people to do it, because you don't want somebody's, you know, like stage 4 cancer liver, like you know, like it has to be a cancer-free organ to transplant it. And hopefully it's somebody under 50, you know, so there's still some life in it. And this is, that's happening. Like, it's just, this is horrific to me. It's so crazy to me that people are celebrating state assisted suicide. It's really gross.
People in Canada are addicted to the idea that the state protects them and takes care of them, and that they can't let go of that, and that the alternative America is like scary and worse and bad. And how could you possibly even suggest such a thing? And to me, Canada seems like a dystopia, and especially so because I left. And, you know, I wonder if I would feel this way to this extent if I still lived there. Like, again, I really think that the propaganda has gotten so strong and powerful then that people just, I don't know, they can't use their brains, and they aren't accessing information and, you know, reading outside their algorithm. And I just, you know, that's sort of, much hope is lost at that point.
What I've just observed through my life and was so glaring during COVID, at least here in New Mexico, is most people don't want to be free. Most people are not free spirits. Most people want to be told what to do. Most people don't want to be responsible for their own lives, because that would mean getting blamed if something went wrong. Like, they'd have to hold responsibility for it themselves. They want to blame someone else. They want to follow somebody else's rules. I mean, just, you know, I'd seen it for my whole adult life in birth as well. Like the vast majority of women would rather, healthy women who are not high risk would rather go into a system where nobody has a healthy, normal, non-pathological experience. They just get on that train because they don't want to be responsible for themselves and hold the intensity of their own life and live by their own volition. And that's one of the most frightening things about the world to me is how few people value freedom.
That frightens me as well. But Americans definitely have a much stronger attachment to, commitment to freedom than Canadians do. I've been watching All the President's Men, which is have you watched that?
No, but that I haven't even heard
like, it's
of it
a series on, oh no, it's different. It's not the movie.
Okay.
It's like there's like it's a mini documentary series, I guess, that's on the Tucker Carlson network. It's directed by Sean Stone. And I think I heard Meghan Kelly interviewing him on one of her recent podcast episodes, and that's how I found out about it. And he's the son of Oliver Stone.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, like, I don't know, maybe that family is like based. I think, based on the JFK documentary, they
Yeah.
probably are. But
Oh,
it's
no,
very,
yeah.
it's
Sorry.
but it's basically about how, the Democrats and the deep state, like how much they really, really messed with Trump's campaign
Oh, yeah.
from the get-go, and in just such criminal, corrupt, intense ways. I mean, they did everything they could to like plant evidence on people and throw people in jail, and Russiagate, yada yada yada. But there was
Right.
the one episode that I watched last night was about Michael Flynn, and I think at the end he said that he really had faith in the American people that they would fight back. I think one of the questions that was being asked of him was something on the lines of like, is this the end of the empire? We're at a turning point. I think it was produced a couple of months ago, so I think it might have been kind of just before Trump was elected. And obviously the interviews were done before Trump was reelected. And so they were saying, like, this is a real turning point for America. It could really go one way or the other, and it goes one way and that's it, and goes the other way and maybe there's a chance. And I think they were asking him, do you think this is it for the empire? Do you think you have a chance? And he was like, no, I have faith in the American people that they really care about this country and that in the end they'll do the right thing, which of course they did this time around. But I don't know that I have that same faith in Canadians. And I know that's not a nice thing to say. And I'm sorry to say that to the Canadians who do care about freedom and actual sovereignty. But, if Canadians are going to keep falling for these manipulations and this fear mongering and for falling for what the Liberals are pulling for liberal propaganda after all the Liberals have pulled over the past 5 years, never mind before that, I don't know what to say.
We'll see what happens. I thought the Liberals were out. I really thought
they were.
Yeah. It's so crazy that people are falling for it. Yeah, I think I have faith in Americans right now. I think it was pretty clear that the whole, America sucks, you suck, white people suck, men suck, women suck, like, didn't play well in the election. Like, it's not a winning strategy anymore to just make people hate their country and hate themselves. And that to me was one of the biggest, like horrors of watching this last election unfold. It was really, really interesting. And I think people want to be proud to be Americans. People want to remember what this country's about. They don't want to just throw out the baby with the bathwater of like, yeah, this country was founded by imperfect people, but the brilliance of the foundational documents of the United States stands. It's worth preserving and worth fighting for.
Yeah. For people watching, I forgot to mention this earlier, but please like and subscribe. I always forget to mention this. But that helps support the channel a lot. And helps get the shows into the algorithm. So yeah, please like and subscribe. And if you're in the live chat on YouTube and you would like to ask a question, please use the super chat. There were some questions from Substack and Patreon, and one of them was from Larry Ono Frychuck, and he says, what is your opinion on Nike running a female biological ad at the Super Bowl? I think the ad was partly a response to the great Jennifer Say XXXY ads asking Nike, why don't you support women? In my opinion, Nike are total grifters. Coincidentally, my friend, the stock market investor, tells me that Nike Nike's 5-year total return is minus 29%, one of the absolute worst stock shareholders' return on the New York Stock Exchange. Good, go woke, go broke, Nike.
Wow. I didn't know that they did that. I thought, I mean, I didn't pay attention to it. Did you see the pro woman ad?
I did, not during the Super Bowl because I didn't watch the Super Bowl.
I saw Jennifer Say's ad. I saw the XXXY ad, which I thought was great.
I watched. Yeah, it was a really good ad, and if it was a response to her, I think that's incredible because I think she was trying to push them to respond. But at the same time, I mean, the ad was totally disgusting and pathetic because essentially, she wrote something about it on her Substack, which I want to just read from because her commentary is very good. Give me a second. Okay, so first she said it was a 60-second ad. She's talking about Nike's ad, which means that cost them about $16 million.
Wow.
That's how much it costs to get an ad during the Super Bowl in. And the ad was like, you can't win, so win. So it was sort of, I think it's kind of the same old shtick that Nike always does with women. Like, they always tell you can't do it, but you should do it. Or like, you're too emotional, or you're too weak, or you can't play, or whatever, but you can do it. Like, which is so like kind of 90s. Like, that's not really the vibe anymore, I don't think. And then so she says, Nike has profited off of pretending to stand up for women for decades, so this is really nothing new. For starters, they failed to renew Olympic champion track and field star Allison Felix's contract because she was pregnant. Their Oregon running project abused young track star Mary Kane to the point of suicidal ideation. Nike eventually fired the coach and later shut down the club in a cloud of controversy, including this abuse and doping of athletes. Then Nike featured trans, non-athlete, non-woman Dylan Mulvaney in their marketing for running bras. And, now they put out this ad, Jennifer Say's whole ad was like, Nike, why don't you stand up for women and girls? You're always pretending that you're so supportive of female athletes and women in sport, but you refuse to stand up for women and girls in sport. And this ad was just totally hypocritical because they fail to address this yet again. They're just doing this kind of like, you go girl thing. But I don't think people are buying it anymore because I think people were genuinely really upset that they had Mulvaney advertising women's sports gear for them. They were like, okay, enough. Right. Like, what the hell?
I think that Dylan Mulvaney, Leah Thomas, Rachel Levine, and what's his name, Sam Britton, the luggage stealing kinkster. I think those four men peaked the United States like that. like they deserve so much credit. Like we couldn't, if they could have been double agents. They did such a good job that they were so ridiculous, so offensive, so over the top, and it just woke up the normies completely to the just how pervasive and ridiculous this movement is and how it needs to be stopped.
Well, and I think Riley Gaines had a huge impact on Trump's executive orders and in waking up America to what was going on. And that was because she spoke out against Leah Thomas. Right. So I think you're right. I think that Leah Thomas really peaked the world as well as those other guys.
He's huge. He is so enormous. And just looking at him, it's anyone who cares anything about fairness opposes him swimming on the women's team. And then Dylan Mulvaney, that was just disgusting. And it really felt like he was just trolling people, but he's also, he's mentally ill. He's, clearly has an eating disorder. The guy is emaciated. And it was just such a parody of women. Like it just was so offensive. And he almost destroyed Bud Light and then have Nike use him to advertise running bras. Women aren't having it, and men aren't having it, and the shareholders aren't having it. Dylan Mulvaney did a lot to wake people up for sure. Bud Light putting him on a beer can was a big win for the TERFs. Rachel Levine's just a creep show. Anybody with
like this is the health secretary.
Yeah, he's so disgusting. He's so disgusting.
Encouraging parents to mutilate and sterilize their kids.
And he's a pediatrician. It's like, danger, do not let this man near your children. He has a sexual fetish that has taken over his entire life. And he's so narcissistic that he can't even understand that why anyone would have a problem with that. And yeah, he piqued a lot of people, and the luggage stealer for sure piqued a lot of people.
Well, and then there was that like Biden's ex-nuclear official who was stealing women's luggage and clothing.
Yes, that's the
Sam Brinton.
Brinton, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And he did it. He got in trouble for it, and then he did it again because, again, he's a paraphiliac who can't control his sexual impulses, and he gets a thrill out of stealing women's clothing and wearing it. And he stole that designer's luggage and was posing in her completely unique designer clothing that doesn't exist. Like there's only one of it in the entire world. And he was just these men are so narcissistic and shameless that they can't even stop themselves. Like they can't even stop to self-reflect for 1 minute, but the rest of the world sees it. Yeah. He also posed doing like puppy play, the disgusting, like pretending to be dogs thing that, I'm sorry, I'm sounding so judgmental of people's sex lives, but keep it in the bedroom. Like I don't need to know.
I want to know about your sex life. Gross.
Need to know.
Why did we get to a place where people think that they should be advertising what they do in the bedroom, outside the bedroom? Like, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Like, you're interested. You're interested in yourself. Fine. Your own sex life should be interesting to you, I hope.
Yes, totally. I hope so. Yeah. No, but part of their sex life, one of their paraphilias is exhibitionism. So they get off on other people having to witness it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is so gross. Yeah, it's I think these men did an excellent job turfing the public.
Yeah, they really did it to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there was another question that I thought was good. Sophia Yampolsky says, love you both. Okay, so we've got some great new orders and laws in the US rolling back this insanity, but how do we tackle the broken norms? What do I say now to the men/boys who regularly stroll into the women's bathrooms at my college? Perhaps it's just what I should have always said if I wasn't scared. You're not a woman, please leave. But the progressives have broken the norm that prevented most men from entering into our spaces. And now that we have narcissists doing whatever they please, we also have a new norm of letting them.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Sophia. She's in Albuquerque. She's in New Mexico. So
cool.
Yeah, we are very blue here. It's going to take longer here. I bet in other, in redder states, people are already feeling emboldened to kick those men out of women's spaces, out of the locker rooms, out of the bathrooms.
I mean, I think the part of the question that interests me is that, trans activists would always say when you talked about keeping men out of women's bathrooms, for example, like, what are you going to do? Police genitals at the door? Like, check IDs at the door? And it's like, no, we never had to before because there were social norms. Like, you never needed a cop standing outside the bathroom to keep men from walking in because it was against social norms for men to walk into women's change rooms and into women's washrooms. And, like a man would have intervened or a woman would feel emboldened to say, hey, what are you doing? Get the fuck out of here. And now we can't say that. And we know that if we do say that, then we're going to get in trouble and we're going to get gaslit. And, the city staff at the pool or wherever it is going to say, you're a bigot. He's allowed to be there.
Right. So one thing you could do on the college campuses is sue, because nearly every college in the United States receives some kind of federal funding, and because of that has to follow these new orders. So I'd say on a personal level, put a ton of turf stickers in every woman's bathroom and keep doing it and keep doing it. Just, put the message in there that men aren't welcome, and then get a lawyer and sue. Contact one of the conservative law places. They'll probably be happy to help you sue. I mean, there are probably like some Bible colleges that I, of course, don't know about, but the only two big schools in the United States I can think of that take no federal funding are both conservative schools, where they probably already have sex segregated bathrooms, of Grove City and Hillsdale. So almost any college is getting federal funding, has to follow the new executive orders. Get a lawyer and sue your college.
That's a great idea. But yeah, I mean, I think she's right, and you're right that it's going to take longer for the social norms to change in blue states. I think in red states, I think you'll be fine and supported to say, hey, you're a man, get out of here. But there's still going to be places where men are going to feel totally entitled to walk into the women's bathroom and change room and then be intimidating or threatening or refuse to leave if you say, hey, you're a man, get out of here, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least you know that there's some recourse now.
Well, you can also, because the wheels of the court system move slowly, go talk to the deans, talk to the administration, talk to the board of trustees, and let them know of your intention to sue, and that they have time to fix it before the lawsuit comes in. But you will be asking for compensation.
Great. Awesome response, Mary Lou.
Fiery.
There was another question. There were a lot of questions this week, which is nice. One that I just saw is something that specifically you'll be able to respond to. H. Daggle says, hello, I'm interested in hearing more discussion around women's rights in birthing, and particularly in bodily autonomy around birthing choices, including the regulation and government capture of the ancient practice of midwifery, including the term midwife. I find it incredible that there are no federal regulations on abortion and gestational age, yet women who are attending or supporting births in a traditional woman-to-woman way without a government representative present are actively being demonized and criminalized at this time. Not sure if you're following any of the recent developments around this in the legal sphere. I guess we talked about this a few weeks ago in terms of that Canadian case of that woman who'd been thrown in jail over this thing.
Right. Well, yeah, this is kind of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
When I started off in my early 20s wanting to become a midwife, there were only 16 states in the United States where midwifery attended home birth was legal. There were a handful of states where it was considered illegal, like not legal or not illegal, but the vast majority of states it was illegal for women to help each other have babies at home. This is an old problem. It's not new to our times. There's a great book by Hilary Moreland called The History of Midwifery that documents 1,000 years of midwifery regulation in Europe. And she documents this cycle that happens where the midwives attempt to organize and professionalize and get state regulation, thinking it will help them economically or help them legally. They get recognized by the state, but then they are under all this state scrutiny and they can't really practice their trade very well because of the regulations. The state then uses them to go after the unregulated women and get all of those women, societally sanctioned or thrown in jail or, somehow ruined financially. When all of the unlicensed midwives or unregulated midwives have been destroyed, the state then destroys the regulated midwives. And then the cycle starts again. And she talks about how in Europe, the cycle happens in 125 to about 125 year cycles. And it's interesting. I'm old enough to have seen it happen. Just, the timeline's kind of speeding up, but that's what I've seen coming up in midwifery. I was a young woman. I thought that regulation was a great idea. I thought that it'd be so wonderful to be integrated into the healthcare system and be professionalized, and we could take insurance and people would respect us. And it ruined midwifery. And now, because there is state regulation in most states, you have to, women who want to practice outside of that are criminalized. So I think it's not a new problem. It's just something that happens with birth. If you control birth, you control the population, right? Birth is the one experience. Birth and death are the two experiences we all have. Birth is the foundational entry into society. Literally, like, regulating and controlling birth is necessary to have a really tightly regulated and controlled population. I'm at the point where I think that liberation from this has to come from the women. It can't come from the women who want to help women. It has to come from the women who are birthing themselves. This has to be a women's autonomous birth push. It can't be about state regulation and what we want the government to allow or not allow us to do.
Yeah.
We just have to do it. We have to take the reins. Every state, it's legal to free birth. Because birth sometimes just happens and babies just come out, they can't pass laws saying it's illegal for you just to have your baby at home. So free birth, and I'm not talking like free birth society, TM, pay all this money like that. It's very sad that term has been co-opted and commodified by a handful of people making a ton of money off of it. So I'm like talking like having an unmedicalized birth experience and an unprofessionalized birth experience is legal in every state.
But you can't have somebody who isn't part of the system helping you.
Right. And then what happens is, if women want to pay a woman with some expertise to be there and help out just in case, if something goes wrong, the woman who hired the attendant often turns on the attendant. She's, by hiring somebody, you are kind of abdicating your responsibility. So it comes back to what we were talking about before, that most people don't want to be free. Someone says, are the fathers going to help? I don't know. Fathers should fight for the rights of their wife, but male involvement in birth is a very recent development. Birth is part of women's culture.
What are they going to help with?
I know. Right. Yeah. I mean, birth was part of women's culture. That really important part of women's culture was lost with the industrialization of birth, and birth moved into the hospital. Women were alone.
Men just show up and faint.
Yeah. After decades of that, women, instead of clamoring to get birth out of the hospital and back into women's culture, there was this huge so-called radical movement to let fathers in the delivery room. And now fathers believe the baby can't come out unless I'm there helping, which is not true.
I can imagine that in lots of cases, sadly, it would just make things more stressful for the woman, depending on their relationship.
Some women really want their man there. That's awesome if that's the relationship you have. My husband was great, but he's he was born without a worry gland. The guy is just he just mellows me out. But if he were an average male who can't handle uncertainty and can't handle letting this wild process unfold without it being managed, it wouldn't have been good, And I think that most people, but men in particular, are comforted by technology and expertise and wanting to make sure it's all safe and sterile and
male experts.
Yeah, often by male, and they want machines and they want data and they want science, and that's not how birth ideally unfolds.
Well, and we're also anti-science, so
yeah. Right.
Sometimes I am anti-science.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. There's another question, and then that can be the last one. Unless people on YouTube have questions, in which case, please use the super chat so that I see them. And again, please like and subscribe. This question is from James Ayers on Substack. Happy Wednesday. I'd love to hear some thoughts on how informed consent and bodily autonomy are treated differently in discussions about reproductive rights versus vaccines. It's interesting how my body, my choice changes meaning depending on political. I don't know how to say this word and everyone's going to think I'm stupid. Hold on. Political. Look, guys, I am going to Google it so I don't say it wrong. I just want to make it clear that I've never claimed to be very smart. I just have a lot of opinions. I'm just a writer. That's all. I don't know how to say this. Catechism? Do you know what word I'm saying? Catechism.
Yeah, because I'm Catholic. I've
never even heard this word before. Catechism? I have no religious background at all. So like anything that is connected to religion, I don't know or understand.
Catechism means the dogma of your belief system. So when you go to catechism, you learn this is what Catholics believe. This is the truth. So yeah, people are religiously devoted to an ideology. Their catechism is the dogma that they unquestionably accept.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So the rest of that question was, okay, it's interesting how my body, my choice changes meaning depending on political catechism.
Yes, although, you got it.
It's my new word. I'm going to have to say it like 5 times now so I don't forget. Catechism. Although maybe that's changing. Thank you. I think you have lots of opinions on that. Do you want me to read the question again, or did you get that?
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that question?
I mean, I just think that these people are such hypocrites. It's so crazy. I mean, this all really came to light for me in any case during the COVID thing, where I was like, literally everybody who argues my body, my choice in terms of abortion, almost everybody, I shouldn't say literally everybody, but most of the feminists, certainly the liberal feminists and most of the radical feminists too, and all of the lefty feminists for the most part, who are my body, my choice. How dare anybody question our abortion rights? How dare you even vote for Trump because he's going to take away our abortion rights, which he didn't and he's not. But that's their big argument too. Meghan, you're crazy. You're anti-woman. You're voting for someone who's taking away women's rights. I'm like, no, I'm voting for somebody who's restoring women's rights. He's not taking away any of your rights. But anyway, my body, my choice, my body, my choice, except when it comes to this COVID vaccine. That's not a vaccine and doesn't work and is dangerous.
Right.
Like, the hypocrisy around this is mind-blowing. This, again, it's so concerning to me because I'm like, your brain doesn't work. Your brain is broken. Your brain is broken by, I guess, like ideology and politics and maybe tribalism, but they can't break out. This was revealed yet again in these comments on my Facebook page around the 51st state thing, where they just like their brains were breaking at the idea that I could possibly say something so blasphemous. And they just, like one woman was like, Meghan, I followed you for years and supported you, but you've gone over the edge out into the stratosphere. Who are you? She doesn't say anything about what I said or make any argument. She just says this because she just can't believe that I said it. But it's, it's the same thing around, these exact same women who are like, how could you say that you support women and also vote for Trump? And I'm like, how can you say that you care about bodily sovereignty and, my body, my choice, and also support these vaccine mandates, which don't make any sense in any way at all?
No, during COVID, absolutely not. I mean, it was the fact that they were experimental was enough of a reason not to force anybody to get them. Yeah. And, again, like it's a violation of the Nuremberg Code to force people into a medical experiment. And then beyond that, like it was pretty quickly clear they don't work. There's no reason to mandate a vaccine that doesn't give sterilizing immunity, that isn't going to protect the population at large. But I personally am pro bodily autonomy on pretty much every issue.
Yeah.
And I I think people have a right to refuse the measles vaccine, even though I think the measles vaccine is a highly effective vaccine that will keep almost everyone who gets it from getting measles. I think people have a right to refuse any vaccine because forced medication is Nazi stuff, and I'm not going to support that. It's funny though. I watched people. I had this argument with somebody about this of how can you be so pro-abortion rights and also and have this my body my choice bodily autonomy is supposedly your jam, and now you're also into forcing people to take an experimental GMO vaccine, and was told by multiple women, well, the difference is if you don't take the vaccine, someone might die. I'm like, you idiot. Like the whole argument to be anti-abortion is somebody's going to die. And
so you're killing somebody, that you're murdering somebody. That's the whole argument.
Abortion unquestionably ends a human life. My point is you cannot force one human to be an unwilling life support system, risk her life, risk her health, risk her everything for another human, period. You can't do it. You can't force someone to be a life support system for another person. But abortion ends a life 100% of the time that it happens versus, I don't know, the COVID shots didn't protect any spread. Like they didn't keep anyone, like me getting a COVID shot doesn't protect anyone else. So it was the most asinine argument I've ever heard. But it gets back to catechism and to people are received knowers, and people are not consistent in their logic, and people are partisan, and being a partisan is dangerous and makes you a stupid person who just marches along with your box of manufactured beliefs you've been handed that to be a good person, I believe this. And it doesn't make any sense.
I know that's a really bad argument.
I have more respect for the argument of like people who truly believe abortion is murder, people who think it is fine to force women to continue pregnancies, risk their lives because the baby's life is absolutely more important to them than the woman's life.
Or as important, like they're both lives that count equally, so you can't murder one. No, I don't think
count equally, and they're like they absolutely are elevating the life of the person who's not born yet over the life of the person who's born already. And I get tired of them pretending they're not doing that, but I understand their logic, and it is more consistent than the pro-mandatory vax argument to me.
Yeah, I don't think the pro-life argument is illogical. It's just that I'm making a different ethical choice, I guess, in terms of my views of the issue, which is that I am elevating the woman's life over the life of the fetus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think you do have to choose.
It's a terrible precedent for the state to say you have to sacrifice your own bodily autonomy, health, freedom for another person, period. Yeah. Do I think if everything's going well, then women shouldn't need abortions? But the reality is, like, many women wake up to the fact that they're with a brutal man who's probably going to kill them because of a pregnancy. So there's that aspect too. So I get all worked up. I get really upset when people want to force women to carry babies.
I think a lot of people, especially men, don't really understand what women deal with in... people just don't realize how rampant abuse is in relationships for some reason. I don't know why, because it is so rampant that you'd think that they would realize. But like you say, I mean, women, it's very common for the abuse to start during a pregnancy, and for women to be murdered during pregnancy. And once you have a baby with an abusive man, you're kind of stuck to that man, and then it becomes even more likely that he's going to become abusive as well. And then when you try to leave, he's more likely to kill you. I mean, it's really, really, really seriously very dangerous for women in those kinds of circumstances to get pregnant and have a baby. And, then you are elevating the life of the baby above the life of the mother. And then you're potentially bringing a baby into the world that's going to be motherless or dead.
Absolutely. Or a baby born on a battlefield where this guy is going to torture you through the court system for custody for the next 18 years.
Nightmare.
It's a horrible, horrible thing. Over 20 states in the United States have parental rights for convicted rapists. If a man rapes a woman, is convicted of that rape, and a pregnancy results from that rape, the rapist has parental rights in over 20 states in the United States. That's a good reason to have an abortion if you've been raped. I mean, this is like that, your rapist is going to have control over your life and your child's life for the rest of your, for the next 18 years. It's, people just, you can't be 100% against abortion in every circumstance and value women's lives and really like have any kind of holistic understanding of what women go through. You're just saying it's fine. It's fine if you die, sweetie. It's fine if you just have to be a vessel and die if that's what has to happen. Anyway, I can't.
Then they really are. You're right. Then they're elevating the life of the baby over the life. Like your life doesn't matter because your purpose is to bring a baby into this world, which is actually what I think a lot of these men think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And because of the Mary Beth Whitehead surrogacy case, we have federal statute in this country that ejaculation is the same contribution to making a baby as like actually making the baby, risking your life, not, entire year of the process, going through it. So the father's rights laws are a big reason for a lot of abortions in this country. Women don't want to be tied to a bad man, like, oh my gosh, you got drunk and made a mistake. And now you're tied to this guy. Like you found out in the morning as like a trail of abusive relationships, or that he's a total jerk, or maybe like while you were having sex with him, he turned violent. Like, this, I think that one of the biggest reasons women abort is they don't want to be tied to this particular man for the rest of their life.
I mean, that's why I almost got an abortion, literally. I'm sure if I was in a relationship at the time with a wonderful man who I loved, I would have had the baby because, to my own shock and surprise, I wanted to keep it when I got pregnant, but I had accidentally gotten pregnant when I was wasted by this horrible, disgusting man who I didn't want to be anywhere near, and I knew who would ruin my life. He still harasses me and stalks me now, like 20 years later, and I think he was charged with criminal harassment. He abused the woman that he impregnated after me, He had a lot more money than I did. I had no money, I had nothing. I was literally living in a trailer. Like I hadn't even gone back to school. Like my life would have been ruined, and it would have been hell. He would have put me through hell for the rest of my life. So I just knew that I couldn't do it. But my body wanted me to keep it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get an abortion at all, but I knew I had to. And then I sort of, I don't know, like willed a miscarriage. But I mean, this is a circumstance that a lot of women are in, and it's not an easy choice. And if it is an easy choice for a woman, then fine too. I mean, it's still her choice. I'm not judging her if it is an easy choice for her, but for a lot of women, it's not an easy choice. And to force women and their kids into that kind of situation is draconian.
Yeah, it's it's really sad, and it's sad that political football is going to keep getting tossed around. Neither the Democrats or the Republicans want this to go away. I think the Republicans, the mainstream movement of Republicans right now, will be somewhat moderate on this issue because they know it's a losing issue. They know Americans don't want women to be forced to have rapist babies. Period. That the vast majority of Americans, not just women, don't want that. Married men don't want that. Your wife gets raped, and like now you have to like take care of her while
Raise
she's
the
pregnant
rapist
and
baby.
or deal with your wife putting a baby up for adoption and it wrecks her and it wrecks your family even more than the rape did. Like this is
No.
if women who are raped who get pregnant want to carry the child, of course I'm supportive of that, but that can't be forced.
These are
And
also the same guys who hate single mothers and who
Yeah.
say, oh, why would any man want to raise some other man's baby? You're screwed. No man wants to be with you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much misogyny, but I don't think it's going to play well. I don't think they're going to push that. I mean, Trump did fulfill his promise of overturning Roe versus Wade with his Supreme Court picks. But it's so important for people to remember that the Democrats have had a supermajority in Congress and the presidency multiple times since Roe versus Wade became the law of the land originally before it was overturned. And they could have codified abortion rights, and they didn't. They don't want to because this is their bread and butter issue. And again, after the Dobbs decision was leaked, Susan Collins, a pro-choice Republican, introduced legislation to codify the status quo of Roe versus Wade as the law of the land, and the Democrats refused to let it come to the floor for a vote because they don't want this issue to be resolved.
Yeah. Pretty Weird Duck wants to know how many kids this guy made. Just one, luckily, but unfortunately. Ardell says, was he a leftist? Yes, of course. MB says, why sleep with this guy? Well, I don't remember sleeping with him, so I hope that answers your question.
Oh, God.
And I literally don't remember it at all. And there was another. I think it was like, why would you sleep with a bad man? Richard Haber was saying it takes time for them to rebuild their character. Manipulative people are often superficially charming. I mean, there's all sorts of answers to these questions.
Yeah, we don't live in a perfect world, like it's like, yeah, you can't retrospectively like throw that at people. Well, why didn't you make better choices?
Yeah. I think that's it for all the questions in any case, unless anybody who's watching on YouTube who has any last minute questions and wants to use the super chat. Thank you, Ardell, for your donation. That's very kind. And thank you, Richard. Do you have anything else you want to add or talk about, Mary Lou?
No, I think that we covered a lot.
I would like to know if anyone watching, sorry, I hope I'm not springing this on you, Mary Lou. Okay, I'm like polling for interest in a where all the women retreat kind of thing. Because I think we're thinking about trying to organize something like that.
I would love to do a Where All the Women retreat. I think it'd be fun. I'm also wondering what the interest would be and if people would want to join us to come for a weekend and hang out and have fun together.
Yeah. And maybe what they'd like to get out of that kind of retreat. We have some ideas, but I'm curious to know what people might like to get out of that besides just hanging out with us. I mean, I personally just like to hang out, but we could also offer something. And maybe where it could be, somewhere around where I live in Mexico, could be somewhere in America. Maybe either let me know in the comments on YouTube, or you can DM me on Substack if you're a subscriber. Mary Lou is also on Substack, and you can DM her there. Just Mary Lou Singleton on Substack. Yes?
Yes, that's me.
And yeah, I think it's a good idea. So people are saying, I would love that retreat. Where are all the women be? Yes. Okay, good. Some interest in any case. We'll keep thinking about this.
All right.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. That was a good convo. I feel good.
Good.
I barely coughed at all, so that's good too.
And hopefully it'll be all better next week.
I think I will be. I'll drink another liter of bone broth and I'll be perfect.
Good.
So tune in next week on Wednesday. We're here almost every Wednesday, most Wednesdays, every Wednesday, at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and on X. And I'm on Substack at www.meganmurphy.ca. So please subscribe. I would love that. I'm on Twitter at Meghan E. Murphy. Mary Lou is on Twitter at ML_Singleton.
Got it.
Yay. And she's also at enchantedfamilymedicine.com. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you and good night.
Night, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.